Gentlemen, this is very exciting. I'm really excited to be chatting with you. You know, in my day job, I don't frequently get to chat with filmmakers from outside of Mumbai, and that can get boring and insular. So I'm really excited. I'm a big fan of all of your films. I want if we could start, if instead of me, if we could hear each of you just briefly describe the new film, each of your respective films. Really, your perspective. If in maybe in a line or two, if you wanted to talk about the film that you've made. Maybe Sanal, you could start by talking about Chola.
Yeah, actually, thank you for inviting me here, Shapat and Asia, Arthouse Asia, and Rajeev.
Thank you.
Thank you. Uh, and actually, Chola I finished in 2018.
Right.
And I had to wait till Venice because Venice liked it very much, and they asked to wait. They need the world premiere.
Right.
So I had to wait the whole year, and 2019 only it released.
Right.
By the time I started another movie, now I am in the process of making
The next one.
the next one. Yeah, Chola, the basic concept of Chola came into my mind in 2010, and me and my friend started writing.
Right.
But it developed into many layers, and after 10 years, anyway, you are getting more, maybe wisdom or
Right.
experience or something. So the movie came into that shape.
Right.
And yeah, the Chola is my fifth film.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you very much, Rajiv, for doing this with
No,
us.
thank
And
you.
Thank you, Arthouse Asia, for organizing this. Um, my film, it's called Cat Sticks, and we started working on it in 2017.
Mm.
Took a long time getting the first draft done, and then slowly the workshop began, and it was difficult because even if they were all trained actors, uh, uh, it was difficult to get the biology of the addict because the film revolves around an ensemble cast of brown sugar addicts, and it shows the consequences of them on one rainy night in Calcutta.
Mm.
So it took a long time. Then we shot it quickly, but then the post-production again, it took months, and finally we showed in Slam Dance in 2019, where we got a jury award, and then the last year we showed it all over. The last one was at Tallinn Black Nights in Estonia, and very recently we showed the film. We had our India premiere at Kolkata International Film Festival.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Lovely. Pradip?
Thanks, Rajeev, for this. Thanks, Arthouse, Shapat. Truly an honor to be a part of the discussion here. Talking about my film market, it actually it's based on this market in Shillong, which is called Iewduh. This market has been there in Shillong for almost 100 years now. So, born and brought up in Shillong, often go to the market, but never realize that every lane in this market has a story actually. So my film basically was about these everyday people, their everyday stories. Maybe it's not an unheroic stories about them, but someone or the other, they are hero to someone, maybe to the family or something like that. So we had a world premiere of this film at Busan, where we happened to win the Kim Ji-suk Award also. So it was screened in Mami, it was there in Kerala. So that's it.
Vijay?
So happy to be here with you, Rajiv, and I've seen all your round tables, and
Thank
to
you.
be part of this panel discussion is a real honor, and I would like to thank Shopat and his team for this opportunity.
Thank you.
To be sitting here with all these great filmmakers, and Nirvana is my second
Yes.
feature. It was my first film in Hindi. I made my first film in Tamil. So it's a genre film, I would say. It's a psychological drama with elements of horror and mystery. It's a film about a man who suffers from extreme guilt and fear, and how that guilt and fear transforms his life into a real-time nightmare is what the film is about. The film was in the Asian project market at Busan last year. It was the only Indian film there. And then we also won the post-production fund from Busan this year, which enabled us to do a part of post-production in Seoul for 3 weeks, where we did grading and mixing, and then finally we premiered the film in Busan in October, and we're now trying to take the film to more festivals, and more than festivals, I'm trying to release the film either theatrically or digitally, because ultimately I made this film for an audience, and I think this film deserves an audience, and hopefully we'll get that, and yeah.
Lovely. You know, I want to take off right from there. This is meant to be the independent filmmakers roundtable. I suppose the first question, really should be, what do you see as independent filmmakers, as people working against the system, not out of choice necessarily, but the system isn't conducive to the work that you do. What is your biggest challenge? What is the greatest challenge you face in putting the stories that you want to tell on screen? The uncompromised version of the story that you want to put. Is it, I would imagine if this question was asked maybe 15, 20 years ago, the answer would be getting the funds to make the film. But I suspect that may not be the answer today. But I would love to hear from you. What to each of you has been and continues to be the main obstacle in trying to tell or wanting to tell the stories that you want to tell, and to make those films and to reach them out to the audience that is there, that exists. Please feel free to jump in and
So yeah, I will start now. I come from Chennai, where we make a lot of commercial films. Chennai traditionally never had a vibrant independent film movement culture, like, say, unlike Malayalam or even Marathi and Bengal. We never had that. No, we have commercial films, and then we have the middle of the road films. But we never had parallel cinema. We never had alternate cinema. There were very few people. In fact, you can count the number of independent filmmakers from Chennai. It's very less. And one of the reasons why I decided to make my second film in Hindi was to reach out a little wider audience, because the story also demanded that. But I also thought, making it in Hindi will make it a little more, will help me to reach out a wider audience, because my first film was made in Tamil, but more people outside my state saw the film than in my state, even though it's on Netflix and all of that. So that's also the reason. So the problem, I would say, is it's still there. The problem, funding issues are still there. Of course, people are now trying to get into trying to invent their own ways of getting the films made, crowdfunding and a lot of stuff. Funding is still an issue, but more than funding, I would say it's the distribution and the exhibition, which has been the biggest problem forever. And it's a cliche to say, but it's been the problem which we have been facing for a long time. Because today, with the invent of digital technology, we can make a film depending on your budget. If you can make a film with 5 lakhs, you can make a film with 50 lakhs, 5 crores. It doesn't matter. You can make the film. If you have a good team, passionate filmmakers around you, you can do that. But how do you take the film to an audience is what's the biggest problem, and especially in our country. And now I'm also seeing a lot of, even the OTT platforms are getting little tricky now.
That's right.
Yeah, like when I was very lucky when I made my first film. I managed to sell my film to Netflix for a good amount, and I made money. But that was 4 years back. But things have changed drastically in the last 2 years, and now we are trying very difficult. All the big players they are moving more towards the big films and big players.
It seems like they're asking the same questions that the theatrical distributors, exhibitors used to ask.
Absolutely, because
who's in the film? Which are the stars in the film?
Absolutely, because when Netflix and other platforms came to India, I thought, okay, this is the right time for us to know. These are platforms where we can show the alternate films and the films that are different and all of that. But now that thing is changing, so it's still very difficult. Well, it's a battle. It's a battle which we have to fight every day. So that's what I feel. Maybe others can also say what.
Yeah, please.
So, you want to say something? So I think there are battles on every front.
Yes.
And all of them are different and have their own kind of characteristics. I mean, it's very difficult to, and also the thing is, I don't really understand independent filmmaking. So for me, it's filmmaking.
It's filmmaking, sure.
And so I was a working artist. I'm still now a working artist for many years, and I have a gallery and I show with them.
Yes.
So, but it's not film that I show with my gallery, it's fine art. So the thing is, for us, the museum and the festival is different. The festival stands in exact opposition to the museum. But when I came to films, it's very different because, for example, you look at Museum of Modern Art, the 2 Indian films that they have shown in the last 10 years or maybe more have been films which have already been celebrated in the best European film festivals. Right. Unlike the role of the museum, which was, say, 1950s. We met this very senior curator of MoMA who has worked in MoMA for 44 years, and he said that they somehow found Pather Pachali, raised the funds for it, and it world premiered at MoMA, and then it went to Cannes. Now my question is, will any museum do this today? I really doubt it. So all these places, as he was saying, that festivals today, especially if it's an Indian film, then it has to talk about certain things in a certain way. So it's tough. It's really tough. Who is looking at the film? Every festival has their own politics. Right. So we don't know. We have to see. But as I said, that all these places, the gatekeepers are slightly clueless with the digital coming in. So there is a disruption, which we can see. And in India, it has only deteriorated. Even in the 60s and 70s, when filmmakers from India were winning back-to-back awards in places like Venice and Berlin and Cannes, the level of writing on these films in India, especially in Calcutta, were spectacular. Those pieces don't come out in newspapers today, in English, in Bangla. I can't talk about South, but this is what I have been seeing. So this is a very, very big setback for us. If people don't get to understand what people are making today, I can tell you in the last 5 years, there are Bangla films which have been shown in all the biggest film festivals. Nobody writes about it. Nobody talks about it. Obviously, the people, like, we can't be shouting all the time that come look at our films.
Right. They need to be
So
discovered.
there is a gap, you know. And yes, the festivals also, it has become a PR exercise for the government. And people have no business showing our films, you know. We have to show outside in certain places and then, you know, get a couple of articles, and that's about it. What's the distribution model? The OTT is a dumping ground for the Bollywood. Yeah. I haven't seen a single good film from any festival in the last 5 years which is there on any popular OTT. Not a single one. You know? So I don't know what we're talking about.
Sanal, Pradip?
See, I personally feel like, you know, it depends on a film coming from which part of the country also, you know. Because I come from a region where, if you talk about films, we're still at the very nascent stage. It's hardly 10 years old, like, you know. And for us, like, still we struggle with funding. Funding is a big struggle for us. And plus, like, you know, in spite of this film winning in Busan and all, now for me to make my next film, the struggle is, it's twice. It's tough. It's tough again. It's become more tougher because no funders will just come on board and say, okay, you've won for the previous film, I'll come on board. It's not like that. That's not the scenario out there. The thing is, the biggest challenging thing for us is, like, we just have 3 theaters out there in Shillong. And, like, our biggest challenge is, like, you know, when the Bollywood and the Hollywood films comes in, there's no space for us to screen our film also. So that is the thing which the funders look into it, you know, because at the end of the day, everyone will look about their returns also. Like, you know, how do I get back my money? Fine, no matter how good your film is, you know. But the same thing, if the struggle, if we talk in Bombay, see, the whole scenario changes if you're in Bombay. So I feel like, you know, it also depends on the region from where you come and from where your film comes also. So that also depends a lot, yeah.
I think for me, the struggle is a little, you know, theoretical or philosophical kind of thing. So I feel that I don't have any problem with money. Now, fortunately, after Iewduh Vachathakali, a lot of producers bumping into me and say, no, I want to make a film with you. And most of the time I said, no, I have producer and all. I already, in fact, have a producer. We are constantly working. But the problem is that mediocrity is creeping in and in every platform. And the kind of film we are supposed to make, we wish to make, we can't make it and exhibit. And the platforms, one film I made and I sent to a festival, and they replied after 1 month, say, we think that the film is good, but we can't select it. What it means, we think that the film is good.
That should be the only criteria.
Yeah. That is actually, I don't understand what is that sentence itself. So, you can make a film for the general public, understanding, that they have a problem with, understanding films which we are making. So we can put something for their better understanding with some message, then they will receive it wholeheartedly. But the kind of film we are making with some kind of artistic elements and the spaces for thinking, thought process, and it is totally, they set it aside, thinking that people won't take it, people won't like it, and I don't know what is the situation and how it can be overcome. I don't know, because all the OTT platforms also same. They are also looking for some popular kind of thing. So that is the main issue I face.
Right. Every single one of your films is more than what meets the surface, and I'm talking about the four that we're talking about today. There are layers. There's subtext. There is so much more than what you see on the surface. They are really thoughtful films. I want to ask you, and taking off from what you just said, if that is so hard, if that is becoming increasingly so hard, that distributors, and now you're saying even festivals, want something that's more populist or accessible, are you censoring yourself while you're writing? Because it needs to be more accessible. You said you made this film in Hindi this time because you wanted it to reach out to more people. That's a language choice. But are you also censoring at your scripting stage to make it more accessible? Are you already making minor compromises along the way? Is that what it's come to?
For me, I think it is a matter of existence. You have to survive.
Right.
It's an issue of survival.
Correct.
So you must try to do something which have some space.
Right.
And if that space you are looking for is totally banned, totally taken away, then there is no choice.
Right.
Either you make. That's why I'm limiting the budget of the film always.
Right.
Even though people say that we have this much money, and I limit it to 20-25 lakhs so that no major casualty happened.
Right. Right.
So we were at this festival in Europe, and the opening film was a Buñuel film. And I said, if somebody would make film like this today, I mean, it won't probably pass the first stage of any festival, whatever selection committee. So it's incredibly kind of difficult because for me personally, I was getting kind of slightly bored with stuff I was doing, so I came to film. And if I get bored, I'll do something else. And for me, it's not really about what's going to happen to it. It's more about myself, and I have to survive. I have to survive with the work that I do. I have to say what I really want to, and I'm certain that it'll have its life. It's not fast food. It's that it's going to get cold. I mean, there are so many films that we have seen, not in theaters and OTT, but all of us have seen films like that. Downloaded stuff and shared stuff, and we have seen it. But while writing, of course, there is a balance, and you want the viewer to work with you. You don't want to spoon feed them. You want them to come along and work with you because you're making something for people. But at the same time, it's about yourself, and you don't want to throw it all away. I mean, the job of the artist is to deepen the mystery. So it's a fine balance. It's a fine balance, but it's never something which is that I'm doing this because there will be more takers. It doesn't make sense.
Right. Vijay, Pradip?
Coming to this point, actually, yeah, there are a time when while writing, we try to go according to the flow of what my funders require also. Sometimes, it comes to a point where, he feels like, this will work, this won't work. Sometimes there are funders who come to you and say, let's make a film for festivals. It becomes very difficult to, what are those films? Just let's make, then some funders comes to us like, okay, let's make film for national award. That's very, sometimes it's so difficult to understand, like, what are festival films and what are films for national award? For us, it's like while writing, we just write. We just go with the flow of writing. We will see whether it works, it doesn't work. That's a later stage, because before market, when I did my film Unata, I never thought like, my film would be remade in Marathi, a Khasi film remade in Marathi. I never thought about that. So I just made the film because I wanted to make, So sometimes you come across these funders, it becomes difficult. So to get the fund in, sometimes, yes, okay, I'll go according to what you say. But once it comes to on the table, we say, okay, we had to make the changes because of some creative changes. So we have to convince them, That's the thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think the people who we choose to work with is very important, especially the producers. Like in my case, my first film was completely self-funded. I had a corporate job for 7 years, so thanks to that, I could produce my first film on my own money. I didn't think about anything. I just made the film that I wanted to make. And even with this film, it was on a slightly higher budget. Language, of course, was a conscious choice, and it also Adil Hussain coming into the picture, kind of altered the situation. But in terms of writing, I never thought about it. In fact, while writing and while shooting, I was kind of thinking, I didn't think anything because I don't know, because it's not a typical Arthouse film. Right. It's not a typical genre film also. It's somewhere in the middle, and I'm still trying to figure out which midpoint it is actually, still figuring it out. So I never thought about it. It's never a thought in my mind when I'm writing it or shooting it. I think there are two types of films. One, you make films keeping the audience in mind, and then you make films what are films that you want to do, and then you find an audience for it. The number could be less, it could be 50, it could be 500, 5,000, but as Sanal said, budget is very important. Right. Like if you're mounting a film with say 10 crores, and then you have to be you have to have some fiscal responsibility also. But if you're making a film with say, like I made my first film with 35 lakhs, I didn't really care about it, but this film, Nirvana, was made on a slightly higher budget, but that didn't that didn't play a role in me deciding, okay, I'm making film with say 1.2 crores, so I will have a song in it. No, not like that. I still went ahead and made the film that I wanted to make. But once you make the film, then it becomes a battle. Then it becomes a challenge. How do you take it? Where do you take it? Like in my case, I'm not sure whether my film will play in all the festivals, because festivals, as he said, also nowadays have a certain kind of agenda, especially when they're looking for films from India. I've seen a lot of genre films playing in Cannes, but then it has to be made by Bong. Right. Or some big directors. If an unknown Indian filmmaker is going to make a genre film, I'm not sure whether festivals today are really interested to take that up. So I'm not sure whether it will go to festivals, and I'm not sure about a commercial release also. So we are still figuring it out. But I think the main thing of being an independent filmmaker or whatever is to be fearless, right? As we have to be fearless, and we just do the things that we do, not things that the market dictate to us, and then figure out a way. But budgets and other things, we have to be. We should have a safety net also. Right. It all depends on the money part. Right. Like the OTT platforms you're talking about, there are very few good independent films, like very few films. Like if you take Netflix for example, I think Sony and there are very few good independent. You can count
them on your fingertips. That's true.
That's true. And nowadays, last 6 months actually have been a little scary for me when I go into Netflix. Other platforms. You see some of the films really. Right. It's a very. It puts me in existential crisis sometimes.
Correct. Yeah, it makes you very cynical. Yeah. Since you mentioned Bong, I want to bring up what he said yesterday. He won the Golden Globe yesterday for Best Foreign Language Film for Parasite, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, if one were to overcome the 1.5-inch obstacle of subtitles, there is a world to discover out there. All of your films have played at international festivals. All of your films have played for audiences outside of India, and you see that they receive it and they're able to embrace it despite the language barrier, if you like. Is that a pet peeve, the fact that here that's just culturally for the majority of the population? I'm not talking about cinephiles, but for just the ticket paying audience, that it's they want to watch films in their languages. Is that still an obstacle? Do you find that is still a major deterrent? Because your films are accessible, as complex as they are, as deliciously complex as they are, they're accessible films. This logic of people won't understand. I find it like usually it also comes from a very patronizing place when a funder or a studio says, this is, we get it, it's good, but the masses won't get it, people won't understand. It's extremely condescending. Do you believe that that your films are so complex that they can't reach out or that they're inaccessible? And B, do you find that subtitles are still a deterrent? And is that culture slightly changing?
No, I think for me the problem is audience are actually prejudiced.
Right.
The commercial film viewers, they can accept all kind of commercial stuff without looking into the political correctness and all.
Right.
They will go and clap.
Yes.
And at the end of the cinema, they will go home with a tea or ice cream or anything.
Right.
But when it comes to the case of artistic cinema, then suddenly they start dissecting it with their minimalistic intellectuals. So that is a problem actually. They don't understand really what it is, but they think that, okay, I am the boss and I have to look from the top to bottom, and they interpret it in the first screening, first viewing itself.
Right.
So most of the films, I think, most of the artistic films, you can't judge it in a first viewing. So they are not even ready to give some time. The moment, even in the interval time, they come out and say that, oh, this film is not good, that kind of thing. So that is the problem I face. And in Malayalam, there are a lot of commercial cinema with all the bullshit, politically incorrect anti-women statements. They run in theaters and people, crowd in the theaters. But in case of Chola, it was released in Kerala in 145 theaters.
Wow.
And they spend more than double the money we spend for making the film. But the first day there was 20-25 reviews came out. Suddenly somebody came out saying that this is an anti-women film and nobody should go and watch the film. And suddenly the entire audience stopped down. And so people are waiting for something to hear that, okay, this film has this problem. Okay, then we will avoid it. Because they think that, film societies will screen it.
Correct.
We can get the film or we can download it from somewhere.
Right.
So that kind of mindset is there. So I think that is the biggest challenge I am facing.
Right. Is that something you can relate to, the rest of you? Do you find that?
I mean, subtitles, I don't think it's a challenge because people have no problem reading subtitles in Narcos. Narcos, I think
Yes.
you're
right. Narcos was
English, no?
originally it was in Spanish, wasn't it? The first one,
So people can read subtitles in Narcos and not in other films. It
Right.
doesn't make any sense. So also in India, I understand only a few languages.
Right.
So if I'm watching a Tamil film or a Telugu film or a Malayalam film or a Marathi film, I have to read subtitles. And the same for them if they're watching Bangla cinema. But you want audiences to work with you. You don't want to spoon feed them, right? Because, I mean, there would be no French cinema otherwise. So I don't think subtitles is a problem. It's the laziness.
Right.
It's the laziness of people and people who associate film with entertainment. It's everybody says, I'm an entertainer, I want to entertain. I don't want to entertain. I have absolutely no desire in entertaining people. I have zero interest there. I'm only here to express, and that is about it. And you can't impress everyone. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's true because I did experience this in Busan also, where I felt like, subtitles was not that important because I felt that emotionally I could connect with those people out there who doesn't understand my language. And the way they interpret the film later on, like, it's beyond of what even we thought about it.
Right.
So I think, it's all that emotional connect. It's very important also at the same time, I feel that.
Well, I think there are different kinds of audience. I think that is very important. Like since about we were talking about Bong.
Yeah.
So I was in Seoul for my post production, and I wanted to watch Parasite. So there was one theater where it was playing with subtitles. So I went to this theater. It's a small 50-seater Arthouse theater, and the audience were a mixture of Europeans and few Koreans and one Indian. And then a few months later, I watched the film again in a film festival in Chennai where it was playing with subtitles. And I was fascinated to see that all the same places, the beats where people were clapping and laughing in Seoul, I could see that replicate, I could see that happening again in Chennai. I was kind of fascinated. But it's a film festival where the people who come or have a certain kind of a pedigree and they are from a different thing. So I think when we make the film, of course, we don't think about the film when we make it. As filmmakers, it's for the the commercial filmmakers to do. Even in the content development stage, they know, okay, will this work? Will this work?
Filmmaking by committee.
Yeah, they do test screenings. They do all that thing. We don't think about that. But once we finish the film, I think we have to position the film properly. We should find the right audience. So not everybody can be treated with. Yes, there will be some audience who will just like entertainment, and maybe if you see that from their point of view, maybe they may be right. So maybe we are not making films for them. So I think we should also have some clarity in terms of who we are making this film, not at the writing or making stage, but once we have it. That's why you need to work with the right people as producers. Like I'm extremely choosy about, because I'm from Chennai and I've had access to all the mainstream producers, but I didn't want to go to them because it's very scary. I've heard horror stories about a lot of films in Chennai, and the editor, even at the editing table, the editor will edit the film and then the producer will come and work on a recut without the knowledge of the director. So all this, so I don't want. So I chose to work with an independent producer who's also just starting out. Even my next film I'm going to work with. So I think it's also very important that you work with the right people. Then it becomes easier, especially producers, because they are the ones who are going to take the film, once it's done, to festivals, whatever. So you need to work with the right people, and we need to see audience. We need to see audience from a very different perspective. We can't treat everyone. We can't put everybody in the same pedestal. We have to see them differently. Yes, especially I come from a state where I told you, lot of commercial films, but there are a lot of interesting Tamil films are also being made within the mainstream segment. Maybe we need to educate them. That can only happen by showing them more films, but that's where the problem of exhibition comes. So it's becoming like a chicken and egg thing. Right. So yeah, it's the problem is multifolded, I would say.
Right. It's again. Taking off from what you said, what is the quality? I want each of you to answer that. What is the quality that the best films share, which makes them sort of universal? This little film that you've made in Kerala, the story of 3 characters. What makes it universal? What makes or the film that you've made when you say in Busan, you're seeing them respond in exactly the same way that someone sitting in Shillong is responding. What is the quality that the best films share that make them universal? Or even a film like Parasite, when you see what is that quality that makes films universal?
I think human emotions is the primary thing that connects people everywhere in the world. And emotion can be intellectually also. Right. Intellectually also you can be, engaged. So I think that is the primary thing which connect people irrespective of their language, culture, any kind of barriers. That is what I felt.
Right.
I think not only in films, in any art form, there is this, there are 2 things precisely. One is the language, where the craft is one thing, then there is the content. With either of the 2, people have to come out with something either new, or they have to say something new, or it really has to inspire me. It can be old stuff, but if someone's like really naive and it's only an aesthetic exercise, that's also done. But I want to see certain kind of honesty and urgency. As far as my film is concerned, I think just because it deals with drugs and it deals with addiction, I think modernity has always understood drug addiction from the monologue of psychiatry. And this film wants to challenge that. This film wants to challenge this idea that a person uses because of a certain desire, and no psychiatric medicine in the world can lift that desire. and everyone kind of deserves to live. Even the cowards deserve to live. Not everyone has to be courageous. And addiction is universal. You know, the opiate crisis in America, places in Europe, it's the same thing in India. In our neighboring countries, they've massacred people in the name of controlling addiction. You go to some other place where if you have drugs on you, you know, places like Singapore, you'll be hanged.
Yes.
We have seen what happened in Philippines. So these are scary times we're living in, you know. And modernity, modern society thinks it can handle it. The film tries to say that you know nothing about it, you know. So, and as I said, it's kind of universal, across geographies, across class, caste, and so on.
I think what Sanal was saying is very true. Like, it's human emotions, you know. It's very, like when I was in Busan also, I felt like, you know, it's all about a human story. Because there was one incident there, like, you know, after the film was screened, like, and I was in a conversation with this lady. She was going on in Korean to me, which I couldn't understand anything, and I was talking to her in English, and it went on, the discussion with her. Later on, I realized it's all about emotions, you know. That's what we were discussing about. Then I came to know, okay, she was in the market like 10 years back, so when she saw the film, again, she could remember all those things. You know, I could connect to that later on, you know. I just felt it's all about human emotions. That's very true, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everyone, you know. Human emotions are very important. Now, you take any film that is done universally well, you know, forget about the aesthetics and the treatment, everything. I think the emotionally, and as Sanal said, emotional connect could be at different, you know, there are different manifestations of no emotional connect. No, there's no single way. So no emotional connect has to be there, and like no, if you're specifically talking about a global audience, for them, I think what they are looking for from India, what in my opinion is they want to see something new from this country, and they want, because they're very fascinated with this country, and they want to know about the culture and everything. But all that can be there, but emotionally how it's going to connect. And I personally believe that, like the example that I gave about Parasite, the kind of response that I was seeing was fascinating. Very different demographics, very different. You know, it's a very heterogeneous group, but everyone were reacting the same way, and it's very universal. You know, if that can be, I think that is the main thing. You know, if we can make films that can have human emotion as at the core, and then I think, but then how do you know? Like no, the Koreans have been very successful in like I keep asking this question, why we have not been able to become a global player, in terms, because Indian cinema going global is not about making these big films, catering to an Indian diaspora. That is happening for the last 70 years. Right. We have a street called Burma Bazaar in Chennai where we sell all the DVD plays of all the world films. I keep asking people, when there will be a scenario where there will be a Burma Bazaar in, say, Germany or in Japan, where the films of Indian filmmakers will be there on DVDs and people will go and buy it. Correct. And we have a big torrent culture. We we download all the films, so they should also download our films and see. But that is not happening. So, but I think human emotions. But I think personally, I think we still haven't cracked it. That's what I feel. I feel we still need to do something about it. I don't think we have cracked it. That's what I feel.
No, I need to add something. I think I found it, human emotion is best reflected through artists, performances.
That's right.
And most of the time, independent films, maybe commercial films also, we tend to act. Correct. The artists tend to act. Yeah. And in European cinema or in any world cinema, we can't see acting. It is just behavior. Right. So that is my understanding from all these years of making.
In which case, Sanal, how do you direct your actors then? What is your process?
It's very simple.
Because it's true of Chola. I mean, the performances really stand out because you believe that boss is actually, that man. I mean,
that is why it is connecting. It is Chola is not a realistic story. Right. It is a totally absurd kind of thing. So even then, it is connecting. Yeah. People are saying that it is hard hitting. I can't, I couldn't utter a word after watching the cinema and all. So that means it is connecting. Right. That is connecting through artistic performance. Right. And for me, I think performance or acting, the potential to evoke emotion is inbuilt in every human being. And I find it is available everywhere. I can make somebody act in my film within seconds. Right. Because I don't push somebody to act. I just say there is a situation, and you just behave.
Correct.
You don't act, you just react.
Right.
Then it happens. That's why I do that.
Right. Can all of you talk about that, your approach to directing actors and finding that honesty? Finding that moment where they're not acting but becoming the person that you have put to the page. What is your approach to directing actors?
So there's no one way,
Sure.
and it's like making food. What do you want to make? There are like little things you have to go shop, and so I can't promise that I'll follow the same process in my next work.
Right.
But so there are a couple of things that I really do is there's a certain I believe in magic, in miracle, and the actors, if they're let loose, if they're allowed to do what they want to, of course they know the lines and they know who they are and they have been working on it for months. But then again, there's something that you have not planned, something that they do for the first time, and I allow myself to be in a position where I can embrace it.
Right.
So that's what we did, The idea was to be, honest, I don't know, but there's a purpose.
Right.
The purpose to get to some kind of magical moment. And the strength is to anticipate and absorb and embrace it. Like there are so many takes in the film which have been a mistake. There was no plan, but it happened and it was beautiful. And there were so many takes where in Cat Sticks there is a whole sequence of two naked men
Yes.
dancing with a needle, trying to find a vein on each other. And I had told them that, it's just going to be 2 takes. So please treat it like a theater. And one's going to be a long take and one is going to be a close-up. And whatever happens is what we are going to get. It's not putting pressure on the actors, but it's just to tell them that, look, there's no harm if you fail.
Right.
There is no harm if you say a line and it doesn't feel like it's great acting. It doesn't matter. So there is a certain roughness, there's a certain amount of if it's not complete, it's okay.
Right.
It's not a problem for me.
Right.
Taking for instance for my last film, Market, because I was shooting in the real market, I had to deal with lots of real people and all. So I did rehearse before the shoot because there was a budget constraint. We cannot go beyond that 20 days, of shoot and all. And the rehearsal did happen basically because, not for the artists, actually it was because for the shopkeepers also.
Right.
So that they understand the whole mood of shootings and, filming. And I wanted no crowds because the people in the background were the real people.
Yeah.
So, to be sure that they don't look into the camera to give a very real feel. So I had to rehearse for those moments and all. Otherwise, normally I give a freedom to my artists, you just interpret the way you feel as the character of the film. That's,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I had a very tricky situation with my film. I had actors or experienced like Adil Hussain
Yeah,
and
correct,
professional actors. But the problem for me is my story inherent was actually a very dramatic story.
Yes.
But the kind of acting and treatment that we were going for was little subtle and restrained. Even shooting the film was very difficult because it's as horror elements, but then we didn't want to make a regular horror film. So it was a constant, I was kind of discovering the film while I was shooting it, even for the performances. So as he said, my way of approach is also to give a brief to the actors and let them do the first take always is for them.
Right.
I let them do it, and then if I need corrections, I go for it. But we also did some rehearsals before the shoot, but it was very, we had budget constraints, we didn't have, and getting Adil's dates is also very difficult. So we didn't have a lot of time for rehearsals, but whatever little time that I got, but he had a very clear idea. In fact, one of the reasons why I did, because this film was originally planned as a Tamil Malayalam film.
Uh-huh.
The protagonist was supposed to be a Kathakali dancer. from
Right.
Kerala who's a boatman in Thekadi.
Right.
That's how I wrote it. But then when I was looking for actors, somehow I needed some, because it's a very dramatic story, the arc is dramatic,
Right.
everything. But I needed somebody who can do it in a very restrained,
Right.
undramatic way, non-dramatic, whatever you call it. And then the first name came to my mind was Adil Hussain. But then I can't make Adil Hussain come to Thekadi and no, Sanal will then go berserk. So I know, no, so people from Kerala will like, no, it will create controversy. I don't want to do that. So, and also it will not ring true.
Right.
So
Did
I
you
want
made him a dancer?
Bhavna dancer,
sorry,
Bhavna. So
right.
that suggestion came from Adil. So once we decided to cast Adil, I changed the backdrop from Kerala to Assam, and then from Kathakali it became Bhavna and all of that. So it was very tricky. Every day was like, we had to constantly battle in terms of getting that truth,
Right.
in every scene. And we also had a very, it was made on a very small budget, though, production-wise it looked big, but the thing is we made on a very, very small budget. So we had a lot of constraints, so very difficult. But my approach is that, the thing is basically, but with my first film I had more kind of freedom because I was working with first-time actors, so we
Right.
got more time for
Time to
rehearsals
work
and all of that. But even there, the approach is always to let the actors do the stuff, because they're also intelligent people, they know the stuff. So let them do the stuff, and then just make changes accordingly, as you go.
Ronny, you said something interesting. You said that there were times when something unplanned happened, and it was great. And that I want that to be the trigger for my next question. I want each of you to specifically speak about any instance during the making of your film, where for some reason, perhaps it was circumstance, perhaps the camera was placed in the wrong place, something that you didn't expect happened, and you fell in love with it, and you were happy to keep it.
For me, it is always like that only.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I don't depend much in my script.
Right.
And my first film, I had a script, and the second one was Sasidharan and Iewduh, there was no script. And Chola, I wrote a script, but I was not using it in that way.
Right.
So I always look for something. As he said, there is cinema for me is like a magic, and you are doing some contractual work from somebody. For me, just I don't know if it is like a kind of spiritual preaching. I don't believe in that kind of thing, but I feel that it is something in the atmosphere you understand or you perceive at the moment and you implement. So that is what I feel. So it happens every time, and I am ready to embrace it.
Right.
All the time. Sometime you may not realize that, okay, this is the moment I have to capture, and somebody will remind you, oh, see, that is something. Then you will suddenly react to that and in a positive way, and for that you have to keep aside your ego.
Right.
Because the filmmaker is the most egoistic person in a set, because he is controlling,
Right.
controlling at least 20, 30 to 50 people.
Right.
So he must be an ego. That ego is essential.
Correct.
Otherwise this entire ship will break. So that ego, in the case of this magic, when somebody points out or you realize that it is not the thing you were planning to shoot, and it is on your way and you have to capture it, okay, you have to bow down and take it. That is what my take.
Do you have a specific instance you want to talk
Yeah,
about?
a lot of. On is, have you seen Sexy Durga?
Of course.
In Sexy Durga, one event is there. Actually, one train was coming,
Right.
and we were waiting some time, and I was expecting the train coming from the opposite side,
Right.
and camera was like this, and I planned the camera move like this way.
Right.
And suddenly I noticed that there's light coming from there. Cameraman was planning to pan the camera like this.
Right.
When he started panning, I turned him like this. He was clueless. What is happening? I turned him around, and then he noticed that, okay, train is coming. Then it is like that moment, that is a choreography which everyone is. The train driver is not unknowingly
Right.
indulged in that.
Correct.
And the cameraman was actually surprisingly, doing that.
Right.
And I think I was able to capture that this moment I should not lose it.
Right.
So that happens every time.
Sure. Sure.
Hello. Yeah. So I was saying that I don't have much obsession with realism, as in even if it doesn't feel realistic, is okay with me, because we were, while shooting, Shreya, who shot the film, was getting into this argument with the gaffer once in a while, and he was like, "Where is this light coming from?" I'm like, "You don't worry, it's just coming. Don't worry about that if it's like." So yeah. So there were so many instances where. Um, um, it just happened, and it's always like that. What he said, it's always like that. Um, so what we usually do is we go to a space. Of course, we do a lot of recce, but then it depends a lot on the energy of the location and what you really want to do. If the first thing which comes to the mind, which anyone can do, there's no point doing it.
Right.
So how do you kind of work with it? How do you make something happen? And many things can become a catalyst. Say, for example, the needle ballet sequence was about this guy, a friend of mine, who used to be a junkie, and he and his friend were fixing. And people who have done little mainlining would know how frustrating it is to find veins. So he was saying that me and my friend were finding our veins in a cemetery in Calcutta, and some people gathered in the middle of the night thinking that we were dancing. And I was like, man, this is a scene. This is a scene. So when we were doing the thing, I had called him. He had lost all his money in racecourse when I had called him, and he said, "Ronny, I lost all my money, and you want me to come to the set, which is like 2 hours away." I said, "Please come. Tell the actors what happened to you." So he came, and Tanmay, who choreographed the thing with Shonok, and I told them that you guys do your thing, I'm not seeing what's happening. So what they did was a revelation, and everybody was quiet, nobody was talking. Like me, Shreya, Tanmay and Shonok, we were shooting. Nobody spoke to anyone, we didn't speak to each other, but we knew something special is happening, which will stay. Say there is a scene where a lot of these matchsticks fall on Tanmay's face. There was no plan, but you're making a black and white film. Correct. And through production design, through geometry, through shape, through patterns, you are trying to find logic for that black and white, and it just happens in front of you all of a sudden. And then we say that, keep going, keep going, because it's beautiful. So yeah, so we always have to be in a place to feel confident that this is good, we're going to keep it. Right. If it means that we keep shooting 3 hours just to, like, you find a cat and you shoot it for 3 hours, it's okay, there's no problem, just go for it. Right. If you feel in your gut, go for it, because at the end of the day, it's all about that. Do you feel it in the gut?
For me, then there were many, because I was shooting in the market. So, for every sequence, there are lots of surprise elements that do happen, But the one which I remember, which, I couldn't keep it in the film, it was a low-angle shot, in the market, where this man was sleeping. And suddenly, rats started coming from way in front of the camera. And the shot was looking nice, very eerie, a man sleeping all alone at night with those rats and all. When we went to the censor booth, they said they have to get an NOC from the animal welfare. Now, how do I explain them that these animals were not harmed at all? But my producer, let's not go into all that. He just had to remove off the shot. That's what I still remember.
Well, Sanal was calling it magic. I would call it happy accidents. Right. No, so because especially when you're making an independent film where you have a lot of constraints, you have to pray for some happy accidents to happen. There were a lot of instances with my first film, which I shot incidentally in Calcutta. With this film, again, everything I would say was an happy accident, because when I wrote the script, the kind of stuff that I wanted, and then when we were doing the budgeting, because it was actually a slightly bigger budget film on paper. Right. But then we have to really, scale it down to some extent. So that had its ramifications. So every day was like that. But there were two instances which I which I can instantly think of. One is actually it came from the actor. Actually, it came from Adil. That we were shooting this scene where I don't know. I'm not sure whether I can spoil it, but there are two Adils who will be talking to each other.
Yes.
So one guy will be speaking in Hindi and the other person will be speaking Assamese. It was supposed to be a very intense scene, even for the Assamese person. So I had written it in a very intense way. But Adil suddenly, when we started shooting, he started saying the lines in a very comical, satirical way, and everybody was looking at me. My assistants were all looking at me, and I said, "No, let's roll it." No. After the shot, he came and asked, "Okay, are you okay with that, or you want me to do that?" Because he's a very good actor. He always is very giving, right? No. So he said, "You're okay with it, or we'll go back?" No, I said I really liked it. Because that was not in the script. That was not in my thought process when I was writing or shooting. But so I'm not sure whether to call it an happy accident. But for me, it was an happy accident. Oh, I really loved it. A lot of people who have seen the film also really liked it, because it brought a lot of variation to that scene. Because this guy was speaking in a very intense way, and this guy was speaking in a very comical and a very satirical way. It was really enjoyed it. There was another sequence where we were shooting on the mountain, and Adil's character was pursuing another person, and then we were shooting, and suddenly we had some horses there. It was not planned, so it was not. We didn't know, so it was like good, and we were shooting that scene. It was a long take, so we were actually shooting for 2 hours. Then I was like urging my team, "No, let's do it before the horses go somewhere else." So we have to do it before the horses go, because it's looking so good. It's adding a lot of. It added a lot of magic to that scene. So these kind of happy accidents, especially when you're making independent films where you can't plan stuff, you don't have the money, resources, you have to be always, like he said, magic, I call happy accidents. You have to do that. In my first film also, I was shooting in Calcutta. There was this long bridge, with magical lighting and all. So I used it in my film. So I placed my protagonist and male and female, but they were driving the bike. It was a 7-minute take. They were just driving through that bridge. I wanted to keep the entire 7 minutes in the film, just 2 people driving. But then my editor and everyone said, 7 minutes, you want to do it? I said yes. So the first cut I kept it, but it was 2 hours and 40 minutes. So then when I was doing the final cut, I brought it down to 1.5 minutes. But still I kept it, 1.5 minutes of just 2 people going without any context. There's nothing before that, after that. They're just going. But I love that bridge with all the lighting, and so it happens. Yeah.
I want to ask each of you, who is for each of you the most important collaborator on your set? The person whose loyalty is and who you need on your side implicitly, unconditionally. Is it your DOP? Is it your lead actor? Is it your writer, if that's not you? Who is for you the most, the person that you find that you most lean on? I would imagine you need everybody on your side, but who is the one who is
I was about to say that.
Right. Yeah, you don't want anybody on the other side.
Especially when you're making a film like this, you need 100% dedication and passion from everyone, because you are the director, it's your film, but even to the last person in the food chain, like the spot boy, everybody has to work with you in tandem. So everybody is very important, but personally I would say the DOP is very important. DOP and the production designers, because they are people who are working with you on the set, so they are very, very important. And it also depends on the kind of film that you're doing. Like in my case, I was trying to, it had a certain aesthetic to it, and it's a visual film, so I was looking for something, in a particular way. So it's very important that your DOP is in line with your thought process, or maybe you are in line with your DOP's thought process. Whatever it's like a husband-wife relationship. It's very important. Production designers also play very, very important, because they're also because to create that visual scheme. It's very important that your DOP and your production designer work in tandem with you.
For the aesthetic,
but honestly speaking, everybody should be 100% loyal to the film, not to you, to the film.
For me, I know everyone is.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
For me, it's very important. The whole unit is very important. Because we normally work with a very small unit. Like hardly we have 15 to 20 people. But I also make it a point, my writing team and my editor to be there with me on the sets. I really bring them on sets, because, I feel my editor also is very important for me to be there, because he knows, because at the end of the day, he's the one who's going to help me with the narrative and everything. So I make it a point, my writing team and editor also to be there on the sets,
So pure aesthetics is a large part of what I do. So obviously the DOP is the most important person while shooting. But pre-production, there are other people like writers after the film is done, it's the editor. So you have to kind of become a best friend to someone else like every
Correct.
4 months.
Correct.
But yeah, of course, I mean, DOP and the editor are very important,
Right.
I think. Very, very important. I mean, I rely on the DOP more than myself because, as I said, I was a photographer before.
Right.
So that kind of bothers me all the time, that what's happening on that department.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of blindly, like give up that, okay, you do this.
Right.
You take care. So that there has to be that amount of trust.
Yeah.
And artists can't trust. They don't trust anyone.
Right.
So that's a very, very important collaboration. Very important collaboration. And the same for the editor also, I think.
I think director is the most important person.
Yeah. True.
And everything else will fall in place.
Right.
For example, in Chola, there's a scene in which the fat guy and the other one is flowing
Yeah.
in the water. It is a dangerous shot.
Yeah.
And I asked, I want this shot, and I will tie a rope. You have to jump. Then he said, how? It is dangerous because there is a waterfall. Just about 50, 100 meter, there is a waterfall. He said, no. I said, I need it. And I described everything beforehand because he is a very well-known actor in Kerala. So this was first time I'm working with somebody who is very well-known actor. So I was scared to work with that kind of thing because sometimes people will come and say, no, I can't do that.
Right.
So I explicitly described, this thing I need, these dangers are there. Then at that moment he said, no, it's dangerous. Then I said, but I told you earlier. Then he said, okay, you show me, then I will. I jumped into the water.
You did?
Yeah, I jumped into the water. Then he can't say anything. So I think you are the first and foremost important person in your set.
Right.
Because you have to lead. You have to lead by not by dictating. You have to lead by example.
Right.
That's what I feel.
Right. It's interesting. This is a question I've asked. I've asked at the Bollywood roundtables frequently, and you will not believe how many times the directors will say the lead actor is their most important collaborator because of the power. In Bollywood, it's the power dynamic. The maximum power does not, unfortunately, rest with the director, especially if you're working with an A-list superstar. And if you have the A-list superstar on your side, somehow the unit is on your side. So that's interesting. This is very interesting what you said, Sanal. I remember Anurag Kashyap telling me once, and we were talking about the relationship between directors and actors, and he said, I want my actors to have implicit, unconditional faith in me, and if I tell you to jump from a cliff, you jump because the film needs it, and I will take care of you. Is that something that you can relate to, that kind of implicit, unconditional faith? And have you had situations, and now you've just explained yours, where there has been that conflict?
For me, a lot of time. From my first film, in my first film, I'm totally unknown, and nobody knows what this guy is going to do. So there was a scene in which we need a snowfall, and this guy, this protagonist, standing there without any dress, naked, and we went in search for a snowfall, and fortunately we found a snowfall, and we were not anticipating. Suddenly, snowfall starts. Then he said, the entire crew, he was the protagonist, Prakash Bare, he said, no, we are in danger. In 2 hours, it will be like 2 feet of snow, so we won't be able to move. So we need to move. No, I said, no, we need to shoot. Because it is not happening every time. We need to shoot. And our vehicle was stuck by a stone on the way. And he, along with the entire crew, was trying to move the vehicle. And me and the cinematographer, we were shooting. And when he was ready to move, he came to me and said, okay, we can go. No, I said, you have to stand there naked.
Take off all your clothes.
So he said, are you mad or what? So And somehow I convinced him to stand there, but he didn't remove his underwear, and I have to, CG that.
Right.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. I really want all my actors to trust me, and if there is any mistrust or if there's any questions or anything like that, then it better be kind of be resolved before the shoot. I mean, on the floor, if there is a situation that there's no understanding between like what you want and what the actor thinks, then it's a mess. I'll go crazy. I'll go mad.
So you haven't had that situation?
No. We had workshops for like very long time, and I keep coming back to the needle ballet sequence because it's easy. A lot of people have seen that. And so in that, I'll tell you the amount of trust we had. That I never told. Tanmay was there and Shonok was there. I never told Shonok to strip.
Right.
There was no conversation.
But was it in the script?
It was, but the thing is that it was not explicit,
right.
and the details were not written like that, and
Right.
so there was no conversation.
Right.
But I knew that it's not going to be a problem, and I never had to say that you have to open your underwear and stuff like that. Nothing. There was no conversation. So that is the trust that I like to work in.
Right.
That you know what I mean. That everybody knows what we are looking at.
Correct.
So there's no confusion.
Correct.
But of course, I mean, what you're saying, it's absolutely true. You want your actors to trust you.
I need to add something. I think that conflict also, you can take it as a leading way.
Right.
Sometime somebody comes and says that this is I'm not going to do because my conviction is different.
Right.
So
right.
if you are able
And you're open to listening to that point of view.
really,
Of course, right.
because we are not ultimate. We are not. We don't know everything.
Right.
So sometime people come and say that no, I'm not going to do that because it is not convincing.
Yeah.
Then you have to think about it. I do that.
Right.
I think about it, and I try to convince them, and if it is convinced, they will do that.
Right.
But if I don't take it very negatively if they conflict.
Right.
And it's not about ego, by the way.
Yeah.
It's the story, it's your vision.
Right.
And it's a very civil conversation. That okay, this is what we are looking at, and this is what we are trying to make together. And then you invest in people also.
Right.
Because you're making new friends, and these are new people, and these are new relationships. And when you really talk your heart out and let people know that okay, this is what I stand for, then the team really trusts you, and you can also trust the team. It's not a very professional setup that okay, 8-hour shift and I'm only going to do this and I'm only going to that becomes very boring. But the moment there are people who are completely trusting your vision, and that's the reason they came on board in the first place. So that trust is very important. But having said that, I also want to say that actors are very overrated.
Right.
And they have their own ego trips, and they have their own ways of thinking, and they want you to take care of themselves and all that, which is fine. But as he said, the director is the most important person. And there are many filmmakers where I mean, I'm scared about working with stars. I'm really, really scared. So I don't know. What he was saying, that I've never worked with a big actor before. I'm going to be terrified, to be honest.
But once, for me now I feel that it is easy to work with experienced artists.
Right.
Because they are also artists and they can easily perceive what you are saying.
Right.
From my last two films, Kayatam, the one I'm doing now, is with Manju Warrior.
Right.
She is very experienced artist. And I felt it is so easy to get the result.
Correct.
And even without talking much, she understand. Okay, this is the idea. So it comes very fast. So for me now it is very easy, because I think it is because of the films I made, and it's a kind of understanding. We need to understand, okay, this guy has that vision or caliber or something, that kind of mutual understanding, then it will happen.
Yeah, what I feel is, what I expect from my actors is mutual love and respect. Once that happens, I think trust will come automatically. Once you start loving and respecting each other, then I think the trust will come. And it's all about conversations. And I agree that, especially when you work with known actors, sometimes there could be delicate situations. Yes, we discuss everything during rehearsals, we do pre-production, all of that, but on set, especially when you're making independent film, when things go little haywire, some modifications have to be done, it happens. But I think it's very important for the director also to have the conversation, and that's where love, respect, and trust, I think they are very interlinked. So I agree with all of them, and once you have that thing, then I think it becomes easier. But at the end of the day, I think we should also treat each other respectfully. Yes, the director, for me, yes, director is an important person, but I also would say that director is first among the equals, is what I see it. Okay, because cinema is a collaborative art, everyone has to work together, director is the captain of the ship, first among the equals, but everyone has to be respected, everyone has to be loved. Then, of course, it's like carrot and stick, when you, when you have to show the carrot, you show the carrot, and when you have to take the stick, you take it. Yeah.
I totally agree with Vijay what he said. The love and respect that you should have for each other is very important. Because I realized with my film also, because my main protagonist is a toilet cleaner. He sits outside a public toilet, and we were shooting in a real public toilet, and the smell that was coming from the toilet, it was unbearable. So when during the rehearsals I go there, then I said like, do you want us to go ahead with it? He said, no, it's okay, we can shoot, there's no problem about it. And and the best thing about him is like, I remember when he was inside the toilet and he was having tea. Then I said, why are you doing this? He said, no, I had to break this somewhere or the other, about, the dirty of this place. And, he said, I had to break this, I cannot. Because I see these people who actually works in the public toilet sitting there having tea. So for me to break that, I have to do it. So I feel like I wanted that to happen. So he made it happen, So I think that love and respect is very important.
I want to ask you, do you feel responsible at all? Do you? And your answer can well be no. That your cinema reflect your political stand, that we've seen it in your films, that what troubles you, you put up on screen. Do you feel responsible to do that as artists, as filmmakers?
Well, with my first two films, not really, because my first film was a very personal relationship drama, and this one is a more genre kind of film. But the film that I'm going to make now is again a mixture of genres, a crime romantic drama, but it has a very strong socio-political context, and that's why I'm very excited, because I am a very political person, and but I don't go on Facebook or I don't put it on, but I keep it to myself. But I'm just trying to use my medium to express it. So first time I've got a script which is I think it's very important, especially the times that we live in.
Yeah.
It's very, very important that we try to say things in a very strong way, but also in a very unbiased and in a very non-prejudiced way. So it's very important. Yeah, it's very important. Like I don't know. Like I gave my script, the one that I'm going to make next, to my first AD who worked on Nirvana and I told him that I'm so excited with this film. First time I'm making a political film. He said, even your first two films had politics in it. My first film was talking about marriage, and there is politics in marriage.
Politics in every.
Yeah.
I would imagine every film
Yeah.
is in its own way. Yes.
Yeah. So even with Nirvana, he said, no, in a way, it's a film about the protagonist's politics with his past.
Right.
So he said everything is political, but maybe not explicit.
Right.
So I think it's very important. I feel to be it's okay to be neutral and all of that, but I think at the end of the day, what we really feel. And I think politics is there in everything. Even in a normal film, the camera, the moment you decide to put your camera in a certain place, it is political. It shows your perspective. Maybe another director would have done something else with that. So everything that we do is political. That's what I think so.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's very true what Vijay had said, no matter how much you try to stay away from it, but at the end of the day, some of the other, it reflects, because you feel like, I haven't put, there's no political statement in my film, you made a person, he just interpreted, no, it's there, it's very much there. So I totally agree with him, that's very true, yeah.
I think it's impossible to keep politics aside and work. Then, only a person who can't speak, you will never know about his politics. But even then, he'll make you aware of the politics he believes in. So any film, any ad or anything which is visual has an embedded politics in it. Nobody can choose to be apolitical in any way. So, and of course, in my films, I've always tried to say honestly what I really believed in, and you said that every film is political in a certain way. So even if one tries to hide, it'll come across. And the times that we are living in, I was attacked recently by a right-wing Hindutva guy with a dagger for speaking out against whatever is happening in the country right now. So I think they were saying, no, that 6 people sitting with one Nazi in a dinner table is 7 Nazis. So yeah.
I would like to just add something here. So I believe, of course, we will wait for Sanal also to say. I think filmmakers are political, but are we having the environment to be political?
Right.
No, are we I've been watching a few films recently, we can crib about America and whatever, no. But I would say that America is a more vibrant democracy than India, because there you can make a film where you can call names, and here you have to make a biopic, then you have to put it's inspired by true story, or you have to put disclaimers. So we are political, but are we getting the environment to be political and be explicit about it and put forth our views in an open way without getting attacked or whatever? That's the question I think is very important.
Sanal?
I think it depends. You can't take the responsibility all the time,
Right.
because a film is a medium. It should be interpreted by the audience.
Yeah.
So you made it half, and the rest half is for the audience to interpret. And if the interpretation is something else than what you mean, then also you have that. It is just kind of a father and son relationship.
Right.
And you are not actually responsible for what your son is doing. But even then somebody says that your son is bad, then you take, okay, sorry. That kind of thing, it happens. For me, it's like, you knowingly or unknowingly, when you take a subject and make a film, then you are bound to accept, or you are bound to enjoy, or you are bound to suffer whatever consequences, whatever reflections it make.
Right.
So film is like that only. Film is not, it has not absolute kind of reading.
Right.
Every time it has a possibility to deviate. A mood swing can change the viewing experience of an audience. So he can think, okay, this is bullshit film. And next time if he is happy, in a happy mood, oh my God, why I missed it.
Right.
That kind of things that happens. And all the time, the first time you take the responsibility of making a bullshit film, and the next time, oh my God, I missed that kind of thing. So it is
Right. We're going to open it out to questions in just a minute, but I want to ask you all one last question. As you continue to make films, as you continue to make the films that the fiercely personal films, because I see it in all of your films, you're putting a point of view out there, you're putting a perspective out there. Are you filled more? I don't know if this is too simplistic, if this is too reductive a question, but are you more hopeful or cynical about the future of filmmaking and of being able to make the films that you want to? The overall sort of the overarching mood as you step out and continue to make films, is that one of hope or is that one of cynicism?
Can I please? So I think I'm very scared of the situation. We all know that our country is going in a wrong route, but I'm so happy that I'm able to live in this situation as an artist. Because I think when there is a barrier, you have that urge to break the barrier somehow, and you will find some way to, some workaround to bypass these kind of things. So as an artist, I am happy, but as a citizen or as an individual, I am really scared and I feel insecure. But I think just like in Iran, what happened, and for example, I made a 3-minute short film recently, and I wanted to make something supporting the anti-CAA movement. And I was thinking about it. I want to put something but indirectly, which will not cause any. I don't want to go to court and stand there and get arrested, because I know that it is going to take away my entire. I was a lawyer, so I know what indulging in a case is. So I was thinking. Then suddenly I saw a pot, a boiling pot. I just shot it, and I made it into a short film. And it says nothing. It says about our constitution and the boiling pot. And finally, it came into just like a protest. So I think if the situation was not this, if I never will make that kind of thing. So for me, it is. If you ask, if I'm optimistic, I will say no. It is going to be more and more worse for at least 20-25 years, I think. Maybe, but we'll survive, and our country has the potential to survive. But yeah, we have to go through this crisis, and then only Europe has gone through this crisis. And they came up, and they came up from the clutches of religion. So the same thing has to happen to India and Asia. That is happening now, and I think we are bound to suffer it.
Nicely put.
Just carrying forward from what he said, that Europe came out of religion and then ultra-nationalism and all of that, which we are witnessing here now. And I mean, I was just looking at this video of Shabana Azmi, where she's condemning the killing of Safdar Hashmi by then Congress government, and Lalu Prasad's party was in power in Bihar where it happened. There was still a space to say things. There was a democratic space where people could openly criticize, they could openly say things. We have to fight for that again. It doesn't exist today. And no amount of debate, it does, it doesn't, it's futile. All of us know that it doesn't exist. So we have to fight again to get to a position where we are not afraid of saying what we want to. As I said, I mean, a couple of days ago I was attacked with a dagger, and for saying things I want to say, and it's happening all over the country. I'm the third person. Before me, in less than a week, another filmmaker called Debolina was attacked in Calcutta. After that, an assistant professor of Jadavpur University was attacked. So it doesn't take much time to become a country like Iran, as he was saying. Very quickly it can happen. In a matter of 7 days, 10 days, when Khomeini came in power. Do we really want to suffer that? Do we really want to get to a place where, I mean, again that kind of violence will happen? Say, in so many years after the Jamia incident, there were more than 100 universities, campuses in India which came out in protest. The government is absolutely clueless how to fix this. They're not equipped. It has never happened in India, not even in the 70s, that so many campuses protested because something happened. So things are happening. I'm not cynical at all. The thing is, I don't want to live in a country with fear. I'd rather die fighting than live in fear. So that is very clear. There is no question of being cynical. This is not the time to be cynical. This is the time to say that we are going to, look in your eyes and we are going to fight this. And let's see what happens.
I feel with 99% of insecurity creeping in, that 1% of hope is still there. Like, where I'm going to look in a very positive way and continue making films. That's it.
Well, I'm actually hopeful. Yes, we are going through a difficult situation, but I believe in the people of India, and because I think we are a very large country with a very diverse population. For me, India is not even a country, it's a union of different nationalist people. We have different kinds of people, and we are all united. And so I'm actually hopeful because I do have believe in the people of India. So I don't think we will become an Iran. Because India is not Iran, so it's a very different country. So we have a lot of people. So I'm sure this is and this is not the first time we are facing a crisis like this. Is what I believe. We have faced crisis, in the past. In 1977, before I was born. So so we have faced this before. This is another crisis to the republic. But just like how we overcame all those crises before, we will. Yes.
Actually, it is not a party politics.
Yeah.
It is like putting a drop of poison in milk.
Yeah. It's a
it's
crisis
coiled.
it's a crisis of a different manifestation.
Make it easily. You can bring that quality of the milk easily by putting that drop out.
No, what I'm trying to say is, it is definitely a crisis. I'm not denying that. It's a crisis of a different manifestation. It's a different variant. But I'm saying that we will go through this. We will see through this. So yes, there is fear. I'm not saying that I'm not having fear. I have been having this fear for a long time, but I'm also hopeful that my hope kind of supersedes my fear, and I'm feeling very optimistic about it. And we all have a role to play in this. We all have a role to play in this. Filmmakers, artists, people, everybody, even the politicians, everybody have a role to play in this. I'm sure we will see through this. Maybe I'm a little optimistic guy. Maybe I'm feeling optimistic. I don't know. Come from a personal space, but I'm hopeful. But yes, there are questions to be asked. There is a fight to be fought. No doubt about that. But as he said, let's not be cynical. Let's fight it out, and that's what I'm saying. I'm hopeful. And even from a filmmaking point of view, I think it's an interesting time to make films, because we are having all these things, and hopefully we will get the power to put that in cinema and show to people. And art is the best way of creating a change, is what I believe. So we can do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have questions for the filmmakers? If you can, raise your hand. And the gentleman here, we can send a mic.
In general, most directors have the tendency to hog the limelight without really quite acknowledging the contribution of other team members, especially in mainstream films. What is the scenario like among independent filmmakers?
Yeah, so when you said hog the limelight, in what way do you mean? Actually, they all acknowledge their crew.
But the team members are not acknowledged in mainstream films.
Do you believe
What
that?
is the scenario like as an independent filmmaker?
Well, I don't know. In mainstream, I think the actors are the ones who are hogging the limelight. I don't think the directors. Maybe there are few directors, maybe a Rajamouli and few people, but I think most of the time it is the actors who are.
This is the limelight.
Yeah, this is the limelight that we get. I come from a place. Where the cinema is completely star-driven. Tamil cinema is completely star-driven, and it's the stars who have a role. So I'm not sure, but I think I don't think that's a scenario. If you ask me in independent cinema,
I also think a large reason for that is the media.
Yes.
Who is putting them in that position of hogging the limelight? If the media shines a light on other disciplines, they will have their moment in the sun. I don't think the filmmakers ever deny that.
So in Oscars this year, they were getting rid of the cinematography award and putting it into some kind of hole where the ads will go on TV,
Right.
or something like that happened. So it's becoming more kind of actor director centric, more and more. So yeah, but in independent films, I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I mean, somebody like me will not survive. You can't afford to do that. Unfortunately, it's not possible.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else has a question? The lady there. Yes.
Yeah. Good evening. I have a question for Mr. Sasidharan. Yesterday, when I saw Chola, there was a scene when the lover boy, was getting very scared that the girl may commit suicide, and he was continuously banging the door, and he was scared. He came to the boss again, and the boss went upstairs, and the door opens. I mean, like, there was a sequence. I don't know if you people were talking about happy. You said something.
Accidents.
Happy accident and magic. So there was an incident where the 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 cloth he was he was holding out there, it fell down. I'm an actor. It seems to me that it was an accident.
It was totally magic.
Yes, and it was brilliant that instead of him, the boy took it and gave it to him. So it was not planned, right?
No, it
It
not
was a
planned.
magic, and it was a beautiful magic. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone else has a question?
Hi, sir. My question is to everyone out there. Okay, so hierarchy is something that we have in all aspect of the society. I think in filmmaking as well, there is this hierarchy, it exists. So if we see the director sitting at the top, and if we look at the filmmaking group or the structure as a pyramid, so the director sits at the top, right? So being a director, I don't think it's a skill set in itself. Like when you are an editor, you know how to edit. When you're a cinematographer, you know how to shoot. When you're a scriptwriter, you know how to write. So once you become the director, would any of you work as an editor for some other budding filmmaker, or maybe as a cinematographer, or maybe as a scriptwriter, or maybe as a creative director, maybe as an assistant director? So would you do that?
I think definitely I will take up that such kind of job if I ever get.
Well, I don't think I can do cinematography editing because I am very bad with. I'm not a technical guy, so I'm not sure I can do that. Maybe I can write scripts for someone else. No, I can be an AD. I've offered to be an AD for many of my filmmaking friends because we have to help each other. So in fact, I was in the screenwriters lab at NFDC a couple of years back. So I told them that any of you make a film, I will come and work for you as your first AD. So yeah, so I'm open to that, and yeah, so because we can learn a lot from that. But so the thing is, at the end of the day, we are fighting our own battles. No, we are constantly working on something. So there has to be the time and everything. So if everything comes, yeah, why not?
Can I talk? Actually, there is a problem. Every director has a conviction. That conviction can cause a conflict. I think as an editor, when you sit as an editor, you can't keep all your directorial stuff away and become just an editor and edit. Your conviction will creep in and there will be conflict. And after all, you are a person, you need time to work your own stuff. And these conflicts, that I think it can ruin your time. I worked as an editor for two of my friends. As they were my friend, it was not a problem. But I think if I was working with somebody else, that ego or that kind of convictional conflict can creep in, and that will ruin the entire stuff. So I feel that it is not working out.
If we look at the Mumbai scene, now these filmmakers, they are kind of mainstream by now, like Anurag Kashyap or Vishal Bharadwaj or Tigmanshu Dhulia. They used to support each other. Like Vishal Bharadwaj was the music director for Panch, which Anurag Kashyap made, right? So, and Anurag Kashyap was one of the actors for Tigmanshu Dhulia, and then Tigmanshu Dhulia was also one of the actors for Anurag Kashyap in Gangs of Wasseypur. So, I think we rightly figured it out yesterday that we need to back each other because nobody will back us. That's what, there was a discussion yesterday as well. So that's where the whole discussion boiled down to. So can we actually afford to have our ego in the front in such a situation? And how hard it is to keep it in the back seat and just work as a technician or like that, you see?
I would love to work with other people, but the thing is, there's no time. And if there is time, I'm fighting on the streets. So, no, honestly, there is no time to work on other people's project. But that is not the problem. The problem is other people have to trust me to come on board. There are very few people who really trust your craft and they really want you in your team to work for you. I mean, when people are in college, these things make sense. But when you're really doing your thing, what Sanal was saying, that you already have an identity of your own, of the way you think, you make work, you give something a shape. There's material everywhere. You put things together, you give it a shape. there's a craft in editing, there's a craft in cinematography, there's a craft in writing. Do you really want to share that with other people? Of course, I mean, if it's part of a bigger sort of movement per se, say what happened in Japan, like when the Provoke generation happened, then yeah, there are 50 people working in a similar aesthetic, in a similar way, they're printing in the similar way. It makes sense, but is something like that happening in India right now? I don't know. If there is a very strong independent scene in India, I don't know. All of us have made 1, 2, 3 films, mostly. Where it's going to go is something that we don't know. But, and I think, I mean, as I said, I can't speak for other people, but is there any aesthetic similarity between people who are working today? I don't know, there's a big question mark, you know. So can it be all clubbed together and termed as a movement? In a commercial sense, you can call it whatever, New Indian movement or whatever, but I mean, does it really make any sense? Will any scholar back it? Is there enough reason where you can back an idea that there is something significant happening in the independent scene? I don't know. So there are many other questions, you know, aesthetic questions, political questions, which have to be taken into account before jumping that all of us have to help each other. I mean, all of us are helping each other in whatever way we can. If not being technician, there in many cases, you know. So yeah.
No, actually, see, I come from a region where film industry is still at the very nascent stage. So we collectively, we work very close with each other over there. You know, we try to help each other because this industry is still coming up. So if we don't, then like who else will do, like, you know. So that's the way, because sometimes I ghost direct also. I have ghost direct some Nepali film. I have ghost direct a Punjabi film also, you know. So because being an independent filmmaker, you know, that struggle, you know, financially we need something, you know, we can't just survive with our own film. So and in our place, like, you know, we still, like, you know, we stick together and we collectively work together out there.
Thank you, sir.
There is a difference between artistic filmmaking and commercial filmmaking. In artistic filmmaking, you are working with 100% conviction, and it is not that job actually. The other thing, it is a job. When you work as an editor in a commercial filmmaker, it is your job. And when you work as an editor in artistic filmmaking, it is like you are an, you know, you are just involving inside, you are a part of that, and you need to, you know, to put all the energy inside. And for example, I myself edit my films, and it takes me for 3-4 months to edit. And I worked as an assistant director in some 2 commercial films, and I know how they work. It likes, you know, 20 days they will edit it, and 15 days they will go for mixing and all. The film is ready. And in our case, it will take 3-4 months and 5 months sometime. So it is not easy to work. It is it is easy if you are working in a commercial area, and I don't think that we will have that much time for that.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
We have time for maybe one more question. Okay, I'm gonna. If there's nobody else, we'll come to you, sir. Okay, let's give it to the gentleman. Yes.
In the film Nirvana it is a tale woven around a real life accident, as you mentioned earlier. What I didn't understand about the film, although it is a tale of revenge of spirits haunting the caretaker of that inn, but there were scenes where a man was all the time haunting him wearing a mask. How does it relate to the overall concept of the film?
So that's a very so the thing is, see, honestly speaking, the thing is, I don't want to rationalize some of the things that we have done in the film, because it's a film, it's a psychological film with elements of mystery and, you know, magical realism. So the masked man is kind of a manifestation of this. See, the film is about this man and how we know how the past comes back to haunt him. So the masked man is kind of a representation of the man's past. We don't even know whether it is real or unreal. We don't know the conversation really happened or not. So honestly speaking, it's very difficult for me to rationalize it. Like yesterday when we were doing the Q&A, you came with an interpretation about the whole story. How it's a supernatural thing. So for me, there is no right or wrong. Everything is a point of view. It is a perspective. It's an interpretation. And I think that's what makes this film interesting for me, because it's not a film which will just give you one interpretation. There are different people will see it in a different way. They will come up with their own interpretations. So this again is one of the interpretations, very interesting. But whether I can commit myself to that interpretation, I'm not sure, because then I'm kind of towing a particular line which I can't do for this film. So yeah,
there are no wrong answers.
Yeah, there are no wrong answers, but it's a very interesting perspective is what I can say.
Thank you. I know we have to wrap up literally, but I want to ask just one question to all of you. Literally, if you could answer in a word, what is the last film that each of you saw that made you go, "I wish I had made this"? Something that completely, maybe overwhelmed you completely, maybe just made you feel very small and felt like, wow, I feel like I could never do this, so I wish I could do this. And it could be in any language, anywhere you saw. What is the last film that?
I saw Only Me recently, and it didn't travel much. And I was totally stunned by seeing that. And kind of, have you seen it? No. It's totally new language, right. And it's story driven. But it's like, I think I was totally one part I was happy, and other part I was stunned why it is not traveling. So it was not in Cannes or Berlin or Venice. It went to some small festival, and the IMDb rating is also very low. So yeah, that stunned me in both ways.
Okay. Only me.
Sorry, only you.
Anyone?
I forgot the name of the film right now, but there was this incredible film I watched in Athens. It's insane. It's shameful that I forgot the name, because I wrote about it, but I just can't get it right now. And it was about this pornographic filmmaking group, and a lot of murders keep happening. I forgot the name. I even posted about it. It was incredible, very stylistic, and so it was curated by Nicole Brennes, who edited Godar's last film. That entire section was curated by her, and it was incredible. I mean, it was literally something that I felt if I would have made after a long time. What your question was. There are many films that I saw last year, but this one I was jealous of.
Right.
I was like, oh God, this is really nice.
Right. Okay, we'll try to Google it and try to find out.
The last film which really awestruck was Rimada's Village Rockstar. That was the film that really hit me, and the essence in that film was like something. I really felt like I wish I could have made that film. It was beautiful.
For me, I recently watched a Chinese film called So Long, My Son. It's made by a very big Chinese filmmaker, and it premiered in Berlin and whatever. I saw the film very recently in a Chennai Film Festival. It's a 3-hour film. It's a very personal story of one family trying to come to terms with the one-child policy of China. It's a very personal story about this family, but through the personal story, you will see the political history of China in the 80s and the 90s. Beautiful film. 3 hours. I was not bored for even a single minute. The aesthetic, the acting was so good. So of course, I'm not sure that I'm even remotely capable of making a film like that at this point in time. But that film, I was kind of awestruck.
Okay. That's 4 recommendations for us.
Yeah, I'll just tell the name. It's Knife Plus Heart by Ian Gonzalez. It was in competition at Cannes last year. Right. Knife Plus Heart. Okay. So this is what I saw in Athens, and it blew my mind.
Okay. That's four wonderful recommendations for us. But thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for giving us a sense of how you work and really the passion that drives it. I feel like the future of independent cinema is in safe hands. With all of you around. Thank you so much. Thank you. This was incredible. Thank you. Thank you.